stuck in my head again today. And I really don't want to pray.
What's up, fam? Welcome back to the Time is Ripe podcast. My name is Scott Smith, and I am your host here on the Time is Ripe. This is a podcast of ripe creatives where we go back in time to discuss things that happen within our community. Ripe Creatives is a missions organization based in Philadelphia that leverages the arts for the purpose of missions. And here on this podcast, we talk about specific dates on our calendar as a ministry. Sometimes we're talking about events where we got booked to go somewhere else out of town and do a whole shindig. Sometimes we're talking about events that we actually hosted and produced here in the city of Philadelphia. Today is a really special episode because we're talking about one of our events, one of our Creatives Philly events, which we do about every month, sometimes every other month here in Philadelphia on Tuesday nights. We got a whole bunch of people that make these things happen. We put together different Creatives Philly events throughout the calendar year. Some of them are open mics, some are galleries. But the other ones that we have been doing for the last few years is Creatives concerts, where it's, we pick the artists to come perform ahead of time and they get their face on a flyer and we promote the show. This particular episode is one of those Creatives concerts. The date that we're talking about was October 8th, 2024. We went to a place called the Story Factory. A lot of the episodes that we've done over the last couple of years here on the podcast have centered around dates that we've done at the Story Factory. And so here's another one, October 8th, 2024. We did a co-bill concert with multiple artists on it. And the show featured a returner to Creatives, Peter Collins, as well as another young lady named Sarah Juers. She's from New York City. We'll talk all about her. And the last one was Olivia Weatherbe. Olivia is a part of our community. So to talk about this particular thing, break the whole thing down, talk about how we came to the conclusion to do this show, what happened at the show, how it impacted the people at the show. I got a couple of guests here to break it down with me. First up, returner to the pod. He's on most of the episodes that we do. He's also the producer of this amazing podcast. Jarrett Top Mop Moses, welcome back.
Hello. Thank you. It's fun to be back.
Always a pleasure to have Jarrett. I would say probably 75% of the episodes, at least, you've been a part of.
At least. Because there's been a couple that I wasn't even at the event, but somehow was on the episode.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, it happens. Sometimes you just need Jarrett's, expertise on a particular thing. But he's a part of this episode because he ran sound for the event. Also was a big part of forming the event and planning the event and making sure that we got everything together ahead of show. The other guest on today's episode, I would assume you could guess who it is. We are so excited. This is her first time on The Time is Ripe. Olivia Weatherbe.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
I feel great. I'm excited to be here.
We're super excited to have you. Olivia Weatherbe has been a part of our community for a really long time, does a whole bunch of different things, but it's actually her first time on The Time is Ripe. Olivia is a first-time guest. We have all of our first-time guests do this. You got to give a little intro. Who are you? What do you do? How'd you connect to this whole thing called Ripe?
Gotcha. Well, my name's Olivia. I live in the city of Philadelphia with my husband, Mike. We also have our dog child. Her name is Bella. Love her so much. My parents would hate me for saying that, but it's correct. I am a barista. I also work at my church as the experience director. Basically, that's a fancy term for just saying I do worship and production at my church. And I've been connected with Ripe since 2019. I got a big ask by this guy named Joshua Schaefer, and he asked me and Mike at the time to be a part of Ripe Worship. And since then, we've just done a bunch of stuff with Ripe through Ripe Creatives, Ripe Worship. It took me a while, but I eventually became a Ripe artist. And yeah, everything's been history since. And it's just exciting to be a part of this lively, wonderful community.
And you're also one of the 5 leaders of Ripe Worship at this point.
That is very true.
And she's also part of the Creatives Philly team.
That is also true.
The only person with a longer list of what she does is her husband Mike, who we had on a couple episodes ago.
No, hers is longer. Hers is longer because
if you want to count
also
Everso
a ripe
as its own
artist.
piece.
She's a ripe artist, and she's in Everso, which is another ripe artist. Ripe Worship Leadership, Creators Philly team. She does all the things. The only thing you aren't is a poet.
Listen.
Are we trying to change that?
I can start spitting some bars right now.
Are you about to join the 2 Lines Philly team?
Nobody wants that, honestly.
She has been a feature at 2 Lines, though, as well. So, hey, you know what I mean? Like, Olivia, I'll just say it this way. Liv could have been on, I would say, 20 out of the 40 episodes we've done, theoretically.
Probably.
As a part of the team that put on the event or part of the team that went to an event.
Yeah. She could have been on the last episode. I mean, we've mentioned her name how many times on these things?
1,000,000 times. Liv, you're the GOAT. We're super excited to have you.
No way.
And you are. You meant a lot to our community for sure.
I appreciate that.
And yeah, thank you for leading so many different areas of ministry well. One thing I do want to say, February 2022, we did Good Soil. So just to like pull this whole picture together, right? We do our first ever Good Soil event. It was an all ripe event at the time. And on that event, February of 2022, which by the way is the first episode of this podcast, episode 2 technically, because we had to setting the stage first. But our first time doing an episode was about that event. On that event was Abel, Rick Harmony, Demir, Rashid, and Olivia Weatherbe. Olivia Weatherbe was on the first Good Soil as an artist, and then for about 2.5 years, she went into hibernation as like, am I a ripe artist? Am I not a ripe artist? Can I be a ripe artist if I've never released a song? And finally, as of a couple months ago, as of the recording of this episode, in October, in conjunction with this show, Olivia Weatherbe officially released her first song.
Woo! And it sounded nothing like it did at Good Soil.
Nothing.
Totally different vibe.
Yes.
Talk to us about this song and like that process of getting to the single Living.
Yeah. I've been sitting on that song probably since COVID. I wrote it. I don't know. I think I was going through a time where I was kind of just figuring out, do I want to be an artist? Do I even enjoy writing music? Is this something that brings me joy? Cause that's something that's really important to me is if I'm going to do something, I should at least find some semblance of enjoyment in doing it. And like, just because I'm good at something doesn't mean I have to like actually do it. And so I was just kind of playing around and making sure that like it was something that I liked. And that was one of the songs that came out of that time of me just like, not even just that, but like kind of figuring out like who I am and being able to give myself space to process through a lot of things going on in my mind and in my life. And so from that, I wrote the song. And then after that, I posted it on Instagram. And then in my head, I was like, okay, that's enough. That's good. I did my due diligence. The song is out there in the world. And I put that in quotation marks because it wasn't really. But I found myself in a place where every time I would go out and do a gig or I would sing somewhere, someone would always come up to me and be like, hey, do you have any music out? And I'd be like, no. And they'd be like, oh, well, when? I'm like, probably never. I'm one person that I'm kind of slow to things. I like to process things fully before I jump into it. Especially financially. Creating music is expensive and I just hadn't found the right people, the right circle, the right circumstance to do that. But then fast forward a lot of years, Scott calls me, what was it like 3 months before?
Yeah, probably May, June, July. Yeah. I think probably coming off of the Eminiscent show in May with On and Leah, we were pretty confident that we had Peter. Mm-hmm. I think we actually knew we had Peter Collins coming back at the beginning of the year because we had lined that up with his manager, Sylvia. Shout out to Sylvia. So we knew we were going to do a show with Peter. And the way we have handled the Peter Collins concerts the last few years is Peter has a tendency to fill a room for us, cause he's amazing and he's just a great artist. And it's great to have Peter, but like, how do we leverage Peter's time and steward Peter's time well by lining him up with somebody in our community? Mm-hmm. So like last year, his show was with Leah Wren, mm-hmm. and it was like a very good opportunity for her to play for his audience. And, you know, we kind of coming into this year was like, who do we want to have get that opportunity with Peter?
Yeah.
And we wrestled with it a lot. And it probably, like, Rashid would have made some sense, mm-hmm. but Rashid had just done the event with Soraya mm-hmm. Last year, and then On would have made some sense, but she just got to do the show with Emma. And so we're just kind of, like, looking at the roster within Ripe. And mind you, we were, like, comfortable to even go outside of Ripe to have a co-bill with Peter and somebody not in Ripe.
Right.
But we were kind of like, wait a second. Could this be Liv's, like, coming out party? Finally, like 2.5 years later, after Good Soil, can Liv like actually do the show? And I will say this, to Jarrett's credit, he put his foot down.
I was ready to fight you because you were just going to throw her on. But I was like, bro, we can't just let her go on because the whole point of these is to have a way to support the artist. And when she has nothing to support, she can't just get to go on it.
Can't you just support my soul?
I do. Without
mind.
the show.
So Jarrett was like, if she gets a song out, yes. And then that's whenever I called you.
Yeah.
And it was probably May, June, I don't know. But I kind of told you the situation. I was like, look, we're going to do a co-bill. It's going to be with Peter Collins. We would like to ask you to do it with one caveat. Yep. You actually have to have a song out.
Yep.
I don't know what you remember about that conversation, but I think that's the way it went.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly how it went. And at that point, I was like, well, it's either I'm going to do it or I'm not going to do it, and I'm probably going to regret it hardcore. So literally that day, I don't know if Jarrett remembers, but I'm like calling Jarrett like, okay, this is the ask, and I need a song in 3 months. Recorded and released. Like, what do I do? I don't know anything about this, and I'm not even sure if I know what songs I want to record.
You sent me like 4. I think.
And I was just, I had no idea what the direction I wanted to go in was, but I do know that there is a certain genre of music that I've always enjoyed listening to. I've always loved alternative music. I've always loved like indie music, and kind of like alt pop kind of sound. And so I knew I wanted to do something fun that I would enjoy, that would be fun for me to do, something that I could really be creative with. And that wasn't always just super serious. And I mean, the song's not like super fun. It's like a serious song, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But, I wanted something that I would actually listen to on a daily basis, versus just me doing something because it's pretty, you know, and there's nothing wrong with pretty songs. It was just not the direction that I wanted to go in. And so I think it was just like such a God moment, like being able to have Jarrett. And then at the same time, Jarrett's like, oh, by the way, I have a studio that I'm opening and it's going to happen like in the exact timeline in which you need the song. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's crazy. And then things just started happening really fast, and we met up, I think like 3 or 4 times, and like we had an original recording of the song, and I was listening to it and I'm like, I hate this sucks.
The evolution of the song was a lot of fun to listen to. Yeah. Like one day you should put out that scratch that we made,
right?
Just like as a look back of like, this is what you could have had. Just so you know.
This is what you would have gotten. But no, after that point we were just like, we need to like redo this, and we got together and we just kind of redid the whole thing. Honestly, the song would not sound the way that it sounds without Jarrett. Like, he put so much work into this. Even just on the musician side, like, he recorded the bass and the guitar and helped me write like a part of the song that like literally did not exist before we got into the studio.
Oh, that little interlude.
Exactly.
I forgot about that.
And so I was like, wow, this is actually happening. And then next thing you know, boom, there was a song.
Shout out to Josh Schaefer too for coming up with the drum part, because that revamped the song in a whole new way. And shout out to Jason
for learning it,
picking it up so well.
Yeah.
Because he told me there were 2 renditions and you're like, I want part of this one and part of this one. And he said you only sent him one of them. So he had to learn the other one in the studio that day.
Twice by accident. Sorry, Jason. But he really killed it. Like for background, Jason typically does like gospel music.
This was not his genre at all. I was a little hesitant, like, what's this gonna end up like? But he killed it.
Yeah.
Destroyed it.
And he owned it. And I think that he did a really good job, and I was super proud of just him and my dad even. He wasn't a part of the end recording, but he really helped with a lot of the thinking through and kind of just formulating what it is. And so it was really cool to just even have my family a part of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to your family. Well, we're going to talk about your family even more as we get into the show. But the single Living, that was the intro to today's episode. You got a couple seconds of that, and it'll be the outro as well. Please, whenever you're done listening to this podcast, if you want to pause the podcast, go listen to the song. It's called Living by Olivia Weatherbe. It is amazing. And it was so outside of the box of what I thought you were going to do. I was blown away. To be honest,
everyone was surprised.
Yeah. To be honest, if I had known that that's what you were going to do, we probably would have put you in a different show altogether.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really make sense for what you are now to be with like a Peter Collins, like stylistically. But it was perfect. Like it honestly worked out super well. Anyway, but I had no idea I'll just tell you what I thought. I thought Olivia Weatherbe was going to do what she did at Good Soil 2.5 years before, which was either her on acoustic and vocally, or somebody on keys and her vocally, and it'd be like super singer-songwriter-y vibes. Mm-hmm. And what you have become is a redeemed paramour.
Isn't that just Flyleaf?
Flyleaf.
Yeah, Flyleaf's way heavier than that.
Lacey Sturm.
True.
Shout out to Lacey. But seriously though, like I just never expected what you ended up doing with it. And it's amazing and it's so unique. And it's really unique for Ripe too. Like, I think that's the beauty of it is we have a lot of actual like singer-songwriters on acoustic, indie folk vibes.
Yeah.
What you are stepping into as an artist is a totally new sound for our community. And it's been getting a lot of love. Like it's the #1 song on the playlist right now. It's the top song on the Ripe playlist as of the recording of this episode. People have been absolutely loving it. So kudos to you for stepping out of the box, doing something totally different.
I just sent you a screenshot the other day. A band was asking me about doing something in here. Like, oh, like, do you have drums and stuff? And I sent them that. I'm like, everything you heard, like, is stuff done in-house, whole thing recorded, mixed, and then sent off to a buddy of mine for mastering. And they're like, dude, this is, like, the vibe. This is great. Like, everyone I've shown that song to has loved it.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, and shout out to Jarrett for being a full-blown producer.
For sure.
He doesn't just record stuff. He's a whole producer in his bag.
If you guys need recording needs, Top Mop Studios.
Top Mop Productions at Top Mop Savage Studios.
Wow. I got that so wrong.
You're good. You're doing all the things. Listen, October 8th, 2024. We go to the Story Factory, day of show. Mind you, Sarah Juers was a late addition, considering, I think, maybe 2 months out or something. And she was kind of like, we could have gotten somebody else from Ripe, but we were just like kind of throwing out ideas. Sarah was actually somebody that Rashid knows. Shout out to Rashid St. Fleur. And actually, Rashid was thinking about doing his co-bill the year before with Sarah.
I didn't know that.
That's how that all started. So he kind of said, like, reach out to Sarah Juers. So we had a little bit of a connection there. And she's from New York. She was really excited to come down. She had never played in Philly before. So it was kind of like a win-win-win. So the final lineup is Olivia Weatherbe, Sarah Juers, Peter Collins. If I had known what you were going to do, I would have put you last, honestly. if I could do it all over again. But you would have hated me because you would have been nervous all night.
Yep.
So we got your set in first, then Sarah, then Peter. Let's talk about the set itself. Who was in your band? And then we'll talk about what you actually did at the show on October 8th.
Yeah. So the band was, my dad was on electric guitar, my husband Mike was playing bass, and my brother-in-law Jason was on the drums. And it was really special.
It was incredibly special. Like, and I'm not saying other people have to do it that way, but there was something beautiful about it being your family. Mm-hmm. Right? And like, technically speaking, I don't think Jason, Mike, or your dad would be like frustrated, but they're theoretically better at all of those things, musicians in Philly, that you could go pay and book and bring them in to do any of those things, right? People who have been drumming for 20 years professionally and playing electric for 15 years professionally, or, you know, playing in bass for 17 different artists a month, right? You could have went and done that. We have even some of those people within our community, but you said, I want to rock out with my husband, my brother-in-law, my dad. And I thought it was so incredibly important. Like, I don't know, it spoke volumes to the value of the night for you in a different way than just having random people in your band. It was your family.
Right.
There was something about it that felt like it was just coming to fruition, or like coming to fruit, because you were supposed to do like you and your dad as a duo at Good Worship Fest the year prior.
Right. I forgot about that.
And then unfortunately you got sick and you were down for the count for a minute, but yep. Which led to like other opportunities that turned out great. But we finally got to see what it was you were envisioning in a way.
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. It was really cool. My dad has been a musician all my life. He has had a lot of like rock influences and has really just kind of indoctrinated is not the right word, but kind of he's really just kind
exposed
me to like Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, all these artists that I kind of just grew up listening to because my dad loves that kind of music, and it's really influenced a lot of my sound today. And just even me being able to, I guess, kind of think outside the box as like a Black woman. I feel like there's a lot of expectations a lot of the time of what I'm supposed to sound like or how I'm supposed to act, especially as a worship leader. And so I felt like my dad having the freedom to be who he was me growing up gave me the permission to kind of be who I am now.
That's, somebody clip that. That's so good. Yeah, it like makes so much more sense who you are in worship and as an artist, hearing that context about your dad, because you've always been like this anomaly type person that you fit, like you just are. You're like one of one, Liv. I mean, everybody would attest to it. Like when you show up, it doesn't matter who else is on stage. When there's a moment that the microphone, you know, shifts to you leading, like movement happens. Like there's a whole different thing that takes place whenever Olivia Weatherbe takes a microphone. And you're incredible, but you are very unique. Like there's nobody that's replicating exactly who you are because you're not replicating anybody else. You're like this hodgepodge of a bunch of different influences. So thank you even for that context, because that kind of even helps. Your set on the night had the band. Your band was your family band. Talk to us just about how the set felt, like how it went, like in terms of the actual set that night. And Jarrett, if you want to pop in as well with how you felt about it as, you know, running sound and everything with them too.
It's funny because the first song that I sang is called Find My Way. And I wrote that song 2 weeks before the show because I wanted something that was more of like a little bit of an upbeat vibe, kind of something that was like, because I'm not someone that usually sings fast songs, but I wanted something that felt more like a groove. And so I kind of just sat down with my guitar, because in like full transparency, a lot of the songs that I sang in my at the show, I've been sitting on for a long time. And I'm not someone, like, I go through like ebbs and flows of creative like spurts. And so I'm not writing all the time. I'm not someone that like sits down and can write a song a day. Like, I need inspiration to some degree. Like, for example, God of the Brokenhearted, it was one of the songs that I did that night. I think I did it like this song right before I closed, or I might have closed on that song. I wrote that song based off of a dream that I had. And I woke up and like I immediately wrote it, and it was perfect. It was beautiful. It was easy, and it just kind of flowed naturally. And that hasn't been my experience with every song that I've ever written. But Find My Way, I was like, I need something that feels a little bit different than what I have, and something that can be more fun and light. And so I just sat down with Mike one day, and we were just playing in our apartment, and he came up with this bass line, and I was like, oh, I feel like I can work with that. And I just wrote the song, and poor Jason and my dad, I sent it to them like 2 weeks before. We're like, hey, by the way, I'm adding this song to the set. Can you learn this, please? Also, not just learn it, but can you like write parts for it? Cause I don't actually know what I want to do. And yeah, they did great. And I feel like it ended up being a vibe. And
it was definitely a vibe.
Yeah, it felt good. That was the one I was most unsure about, because I had obviously never done it live before, because it was a brand new song. But I really enjoyed it. I think it was really good for the context that we were in, and it felt, I don't know, it felt different than all the other songs that I have. And so I just enjoyed singing it. I had fun. In terms of the other songs that I did, I also did a song called God of the Brokenhearted. I wrote that song back in 2020. Like I just said, off of a dream that I had. And that was one of those God moment songs. It's a worship song. It's one of the only worship songs I've ever written in my whole life, just for myself.
I only found out recently, like probably 2 weeks before we're recording this, that that's your song.
Yeah.
I thought, I have thought that God of the Brokenhearted was somebody else's worship song for years, guys. Like, for years, I thought it was like Tribal or Mav, or, you know what I'm saying? Like,
That's
vertical
so
worship. I genuinely thought that song was a worship song out in the world that other people have been doing for years. And I just found out very recently that was your original song. And I was like, wait, what? God of the Brokenhearted is your song. It's amazing, Liv.
Thank you.
It's so good.
Isn't that one for the EP?
Yeah. So when I, in the future, plan to drop an EP one day.
She's like, take the pressure off. Take the pressure off.
In the future, unforeseeable. No, I'm kidding.
That's the rule. One new song a show.
That's all you're going to get from me, honestly. But, yeah, I do plan to have that song. I feel like it's a very full circle. I've always had a dream of like releasing an EP that is about stories and testimonies, and kind of intertwining my own testimony in there. And I feel like that song really encapsulates, just a lot of what I would be talking about, because a lot of times life is traumatic and scary, and mental health is a thing. And, you know, I feel like as a Christian artist, I want to be able to write songs that are authentic to that and authentic to my life and my experiences. But I also always want those songs to point back to the Lord. And so even if I have a song like at the beginning of the EP that might be a little darker, I want people to be able to hear that, but then at the same time understand that there's always a finish line, and that always ends up in Jesus. Mm-hmm. And so that was the intention of writing the song. Well, at the time when I first wrote the song, I didn't know this, but as I processed the song since then, I realized that a lot of the songs that I write are kind of sad, but always pointing to the Lord. And I want that to kind of just really wrap in the message for people.
Super good. The first song was Find My Way. Mm-hmm. Talked about God of the Brokenhearted.
Yeah.
You also did the single that's out.
Yes.
Living.
Yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Was there another one? Was there a fourth? Or was it just three?
Wake Up Song. Wake Up Song.
Yes.
I forgot about that one.
That joint is crazy. You did that actually at Creative's Pier a year before.
Mm-hmm. I think we did it as Ever So.
No,
I did that by myself.
Yeah,
at Venice Island.
At Venice Island, you opened a Creative's Pier open mic. And that was also part of it, right? Like, when we look at who to ask for the concerts, we're kind of going through our Rolodex of incognito features and trying to find people who have done the incognito stuff who could step forward to be a concert. But yeah, you did that song there. But again, it was a totally different song. Like, from an acoustic vibe by yourself up there to full band with all of these different elements. Like, it's amazing how much your music feels so different than what I thought it was going to sound like.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Jarrett, anything from your end? Just like being up in the booth mixing this whole thing with Liv's set?
it was an interesting night trying to mix hers, also thinking about what the rest of the night was going to feel like. And just finding the happy equilibrium between the two. Or not even like finding an equilibrium, just finding a way to make it feel all cohesive and feel good together. Overall, like, it was a great night. I think, yeah, you're right. Closing with her probably would have like killed it. But even just opening with her was a great way to do the night.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't do my idea originally, which was to put her in the middle. So it was like singer-songwriter vibes, Live with this full band going crazy, back to singer-songwriter vibes. I think it was right to put you at either end. Mm-hmm. You kind of expressed, I would like to go first.
Yes.
So that my nerves and everything, I'm already going to feel like I want to throw up all day. Mm-hmm. So let's get my stuff done so I can enjoy the rest of the show.
Which I appreciated so much.
So that's what we did. But in the next time, okay, Liv, you're not, you are the showstopper, Liv. Mm-mm. You killed it. I will say shout out to Sarah Juers.
Yes.
Coming in from New York. First time a lot of us hearing her live. Yeah. She has an amazing catalog. Mm-hmm. If you like indie, folk, Christian music, singer-songwriter vibes, whether that's like worship vibes or just, kingdom music, she has both. Amazing. She has some really, really good music, a ton of music out, like probably a good 50 to 100 songs out. Easily. I
was going to say, even outside of like the singer-songwriter vibe, she's done a ton of features with people that have broken into other genres.
Yes. Yeah, Sarah has like really mapped out a career for herself. I mean, this is what she does. She's a full-time artist, and rightfully so. She's fantastic. Make sure you look her up on Spotify and stream her stuff. Really, really, really great. And such a sweetheart, spunky, like funny personality, goofball. Her manager was also there, Logan. She was super, super sweet to interact with. Very professional, great communicators. It was awesome. And then the end of the show was with Peter Collins, which Peter Collins is Peter Collins. He's amazing. We love him. We've been very lucky to be friends with Peter Collins, which has allowed us to get Peter Collins. It's not like a thing a lot of people can just go do. Yeah. But we've been very blessed to have like a strong relationship with him. It's actually year 5 of Peter Collins doing creative stuff.
That's crazy.
Because going back to 2020, before the pandemic, he did an incognito feature for us at Homestead. This was before Jarrett and I even met.
Was that? I thought that was, I was going to say that show I thought was in January.
Yeah, it was February of 2020, but you weren't there.
Right.
We had just met a couple months before. Peter was an incognito feature that year. The next year we were in a pandemic. He did a live stream. The next year after that, he did a solo show as one of our first events, kind of coming back and doing concerts again. The next year after that was him and Leah Wren, and then this year with Olivia and Sarah. Yeah. So 5 years in a row, Peter has been to Creatives Philly, which we're very thankful for. And he always kills it, always brings out people. And it was a great night of sets. Want to just kind of shift gears a bit beyond just their sets, but just to talk about the night, like in terms of the impact. We can center on the impact that it had on other people, the impact it had on our community. But I assume that there's probably a little bit of impact that happened even on you, Liv. Mm-hmm. So yeah, let's just talk about the impact of the night. The why did this happen from God's vantage point? Like, what was this for?
I know for me, the show itself, I think it was really cool for me to do something that I didn't think that I could have ever done. And I think it was really cool having my family witness it. Because I always talk about Ripe with people in my life. And sometimes it's one thing explaining it, and then it's another thing them witnessing it. Mm-hmm. And Scott, I can attest this for you, is that you set this platform of honor for artists and for honestly everyone that comes into contact with Ripe. And being able to experience that as an artist with my family present, with my community present. I had people from old jobs come and be at the show. And it was just such a wild experience, having pretty much everyone from every facet of my life being in one room. And people that are just so close to me and mean so much, being able to be there. I just felt so loved. And I don't think I've ever felt like that in my whole life. Just the amount of support that I experienced was insane. So yeah, it was just one of those things it was mind blowing for me. And it took me days to process it. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. Not just for us to hear it so that we pat ourselves on our back or something, but that's the whole point, is for the person within our community that's getting the opportunity to do this show, to know that they're loved, to know that they're supported and they're cared for. I think even going back to Leah and On's episode, Rashid's episode, with Soraya, the last few Creatives Co-Bill episodes we've done, this has been the theme. Is man, I felt so supported. I felt so cared for. And it was all these people from different parts of my life all getting to see this thing that I do. And yeah, it makes it worth it. It's a lot of investment, a lot of energy, a lot of communication, a lot of planning, a lot of, making sure the venue's ready to go and the sound's ready to go and the lights and the hospitality team. There's a lot of parts to do it. But what makes it worth it is that somebody in our community that we love feels loved. Mm-hmm. Tangible love and support that hopefully is an encouragement to keep going.
Yeah.
Hopefully is all right, this was not a one and done. Right. This should be a fire under the tush to keep going. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at you, Liv.
One night only. Okay.
I'm looking at you, Liv.
That's side eye though.
She gave me a side eye. But genuinely, that's the heart of it, is that you would feel encouraged to continue, feel encouraged to be oh, I actually can do this. Mm-hmm. I'm meant to do this.
Yeah.
And it may not be your full-time life ever, right? Because different people, there's very few people that do it full-time forever, but it's a part of who you are at minimum.
Yeah.
This is not a gift that you're supposed to sit on. And I think within Ripe, across the board, we have a whole lot of people that are super humble, super sincere, love Jesus, but lack confidence. And it's our responsibility, I think me, Jarrett, and other people in the community that this is our livelihood. This is what we do, to be yo, wake up. You have it. Trust us. We are not lying to you. And neither is this room full of people that all came here to see you do this thing. They're all saying the same thing. You're amazing. You really have something here. Don't sit on it.
Yeah.
One moment, sounds like a dumb thing from an impact standpoint, but I just want to shout out Leah Wren.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
She had a sign that said Olivia Weatherbe rocks, and she held it up the entire show.
I love her.
I was like, Leah, there's people sitting behind you. You got to put that sign down. But she just held it up. And it was comical and funny, but it was also so beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it was her heart for you. As somebody who's gotten to do a couple of these shows, to see you get to do what she's been doing, that meant the world to her. She's I need Liv because I need a buddy in this. So they stop yelling at me all the time.
I'm cracking up.
Yo, that's true though.
There's more people getting the encouragement and the push,
The side eye. more people getting the side eye.
Right. We're the only ones that get the side eye. We are receivers of the side eye.
Yeah, the side eye is more of a reaction to us telling them that.
True.
Facts. True. Liv, you mentioned a lot of different people from different parts of your life, your church, your family, obviously, friends, old acquaintances, old coworkers, random Joe Schmoes that had, seen you lead worship somewhere but wanted to come see what you do as an artist. We're all in the room together. I would just love if you had any moments that you had with any of those people where it's just like, man, this was a conversation I got to have with somebody that meant a lot to me. Like if you saw anything there.
Yeah. I can't speak to the night because honestly, after I got off stage, everything was like a blur. It was just a wave of like, wow, that happened. I have 1,000 pounds off my shoulders now and I can be a free human. It felt great. It felt amazing. It felt like a huge accomplishment. Just even being able to follow through on something like that was amazing.
Who brought you that big old bouquet?
It was funny because 4 people brought me bouquets. One of my best friends, Al Fati, who's a part of Right Worship, brought me flowers. My mom brought me flowers. My pastor's wife brought me flowers. So I was just walking around with this big giant bouquet of Mod Podge of flowers that actually sat around in my apartment until last week. They were brown and rotten and falling apart, but I just didn't want to throw them away. Which is hilarious and gross at the same time. But one of the biggest things was after that night, my pastor approached me and was like, we really want you to do some of your original music in service. And I was very nervous about that. Just because doing things on a platform like Creatives and doing something in the church are two completely different environments, approaches, ways that you do it. And we have just gone through a really big transition in my church where we kind of almost relaunched our location. But we transitioned to having night services. And so, we had our first service, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. And during that time, I was planning on performing one of my original songs, which was as a result of, my pastor just being touched and impacted by the night of the show. And it was really cool to be able to show that part of myself to, just the people that I go to church with, because I'm just running around doing worship stuff most of the time. And so it's just very different, a very different side of me. So yeah, it was really cool.
That is cool. I didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's what's up. I mean, that's incredibly dope. And also, tells you how good God of the brokenhearted is. That churches want that. I feel like there are churches already doing that song. I swear I've heard.
There's no way.
I'm telling you, God of the brokenhearted is already being led by people not named Olivia Weatherbe. And there's no way that's your song.
Scott,
I don't believe you. No,
Listen,
it's
that just
out
says
there.
We got to put it out there because other people are just going to start doing it. And we got to make sure that you get those royalties when they play it on Sunday morning.
Facts.
There you go. Passive income in Jesus' name.
Was it CCI? CCI is going to write you a check?
CCLI.
They're going to be writing you a check.
Man, that would be crazy.
That's amazing that they want to, yeah. Amen. Go ahead, worship leader, singer-songwriter extraordinaire. Liv, you are so talented at both. It's really fun to see you step into different spaces. Because I think it would have been very easy for you to not do this side. Just be I'm quote unquote just a worship leader.
Mm-hmm.
That was something we had struggled with in the recording. The whole worship leader side. Because you kept saying we would do a take and you're like, that's too much like a worship song. And we'd scrap it, redo it, play a guitar part. It sounds too much like a worship song. Scrap it, redo it.
Yep.
And it there were a couple times where you would send it to a couple friends hey, give me your input on this. Hey, give me your input on this. And I think people not knowing what sound you were going for, they kept giving revisions that made it sound like a worship song. And I was like, you got to stop asking people, Liv, please.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I was very nervous. especially doing this for the first time, I know that by the end of the recording process, God bless Jarrett's soul, because I was going nuts. I was asking everybody and their grandmother, like, does this sound good? I can't tell. I feel like I listened to the song like 15 times before I was actually like, okay, I think I like this. And not because I didn't think that it was good, but because I was nitpicking so hard, because I didn't want it to sound like a worship song. I wanted to be able to portray it the way that I envisioned. But like when you listen to something so many times, you're no longer hearing it. Like
Right.
I was no longer hearing the song. I was just like, it is what it is. And like being able to surrender it and then hearing it afterwards, I was like, I was high key tripping. Like it's actually good and I need to like not overthink it. And so when I do my next music, because is going to be next music and songs that happen in the future, I will not do that to myself ever again.
Thank you. You were struggling in that. I'm not gonna lie.
I was stressed. I was losing sleep.
First time though.
It's gonna happen. Yeah. But I'm glad that you learned from it.
I did.
Because there's so many artists that will do that on their like 20th release still, and I'm like, just stop.
Never again.
I think you'll get more and more comfortable as time goes on.
It's all about just ironing out your sound.
Even for us, right, on the creative side as a whole, we've gotten comfortable doing these events, right? There was a time where it was like, we only know how to do an event one type of way. Let's try something new. And I think it's beautiful how the creatives concert side of what we've been doing the last few years has evolved from an online thing on Instagram to a YouTube thing to a solo artist to 2 artists to even now 3 artists. And, you know, it's probably going to evolve and change even in 2025 in different ways or in the future in general, depending on when you listen to this.
Yeah.
But like we figured it out how to do these well, how to get the most out of an event because we've done it a bunch of times. And I think the same thing will happen for you as an artist. Every time you step into the studio, you're going to get more and more comfortable on either end. As the worship leader, Liv, because you're going to do recordings for that stuff too, or as the artist, Liv. And I just think it's beautiful to have both and for both of those things to be a part of the way God's wired you. Because what your worship is not your artist side.
Right.
They're so different. They still all honor God.
Yeah.
And they tell truths about God and his heart and his character and who he is and what he's about. But they sonically, they're different worlds.
Very much so.
You know? So I think that's going to be beautiful. I know the value of the show for us as a ministry, like, is mostly just the impact it's had on you. Because as you go, we go. You know, we're excited to ride your coattails into eternity. As you continue to take steps forward. But genuinely, like, as people in our community are impacted by what we do, it impacts all of us because we grow together. You know, rising tide raises all ships. And we really have seen that. Whenever an artist steps forward in their gifting and calling to do their artistry, it is an encouragement to so many other people who might be stumbling forward in their own. Right? You have no idea just doing this, releasing your first song, what 17, 18-year-old girl that's around our community is going to feel confident enough to take that step themselves in 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
You know, like, you just have no idea the fruit that will come from this that's beyond just a conversation you have with your pastor or a conversation with a family member on the night of the show.
Right.
Like, the act of faith always produces something.
Amen.
So even just the way you talked about how your dad influenced you to not feel like you're bound by something like skin color to a specific genre, sound, or way of acting in your music, like, you're going to be doing that for someone else. My girlfriend loves seeing people of color do things like that because she hates the whole confinement that's come for society with that.
Yeah, you're going to be changing the world, Liv. You know what I'm saying?
That's great.
You're amazing, Liv. We honor you. We love you. We are so thankful, not just for October 8th, but who you've been in our community for years.
Yeah.
And your husband, Mike. Shout out to Mike. He was just on an episode a couple episodes ago when we talked about the Creatives Peer event. You know, you guys mean so much to us. And not just what you do, but who you are. Like, we love you guys as people, as brothers and sisters first, regardless of whether you like ever do this again. But we know you should. Does that make sense? Like, we're not going to love you any differently if you never release another song, but you should release more songs because it's part of who you are, you know? So that's what I'll say there.
I appreciate the kind words, Scott, and I will do my best to release more music as hastily as possible.
Hastily.
That's the whole point of Ripe and Creatives, is like the Ripe artists, like getting their encouragement, getting their push from the people around them who love them, who are going to be honest with them. Like, we've told people when their stuff isn't great. We've told people that their stuff is great. So like, if you know we'll tell you one thing, it means that what we say like carries some weight. Like, we promise we're giving you like an accurate description of what your music sounds like, what your artistry carries.
Yeah. I know that I definitely left that night feeling super inspired and ready to record more music, and like having a basis to kind of envision myself in an artist space. So thanks, Ripe.
Amen. Amen. Listen, thank you, whoever's listening to this podcast, for jumping in to this story. It was a beautiful night, October 8th, 2024. I will speak super candidly. It does not happen without the people who partner with us and support our ministry to help fund the events. None of our events are profitable, really. Any of them are. They are all an investment, and they take resources to be able to do. But we believe in ultimately the fruit that's going to come from these events by way of impact that it has on people in our community and adjacent to it. And we've seen that time and time again. The people who come to these events are impacted, but more so than anybody else, we're impacted. And as we're impacted, we want to live more faithfully to honor Jesus with our whole lives and live on mission for him and serve our churches and go out and be a light in dark places. And so, and just produce good things for the world to consume. There's a lot of trash and garbage out here on the internet and on TikTok and on Instagram and on Spotify and Apple Music. There's a lot of terrible, terrible things that are having negative impact on the next generation. So for us, it's about, we got to compete with that. We have to create things to move into those spaces, to be a light in the darkness. And so that's kind of our heartbeat, but all of what we do takes resource. And so if you're here and you don't currently partner with us, we'd highly recommend you jumping on our website, ripecreatives.com. Consider becoming a monthly partner with us, because your resources are what enables us to throw events like Creatives Concerts and, you know, our open mics, and support the artists in our community so that they can do more and more. If you already partnered with us, we just want to say thank you. We're not asking you to go back into your pocket and give again, you know? Like, we just want to say thank you for your generosity. Thank you for loving our community in the way that you do through giving to support it. It means the world to us. It's what enables us to do everything that we do. So, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Pray that you're blessed by this, that something in this conversation sticks out to you. Maybe you're inspired to pursue your own gifts in a way that without Liv's testimony and story, you wouldn't otherwise do. So thank you, Liv. Thank you, Jarrett, as always, for recording and being on today's episode. Listen, we got a whole lot more coming the rest of season 3, and we got stuff already lined up for season 4. Oh, they're not ready.
Crazy things are ahead for The Time Is Right. Until next time, y'all, we love you. Stay right.
So